mean percentage of instances in which a team scores could depend on whether the leadoff hitter reaches base. Use the information below to design a simulation for whether a team scores at least one run in an inning. All right, it's wordy, but I actually created this problem based off of something I heard in a Mets broadcast. All right, and 2015 was shaping up to be a pretty good year for the Mets until they lost the World Series, but it was a good ride. Yeah, but it ended the way most seasons for the Mets end, with bitter, crushing defeat. Usually some sort of embarrassing defeat. I don't know. I'm losing track of how old people are, and also like birth years and things like that. So 2015. So that's 6 years ago. So you're old enough if you're a baseball fan that you would have seen. You would have seen Yoenis Cespedes trip all over himself in left field and give up a inside the park home run because he just decided that he wasn't going to show up that series. But
Bartolo Colon hit the home run that year though?
Oh
yeah.
That was so high.
So that's can't be a bad season.
I like Kansas and out.
Oh yeah. Losing the World Series in 5 games is an even swap for Bartolo Colon.
Yeah. It was pretty cool.
Hitting
You
him.
did too, right? I think so.
Yeah. I mean, it was. That was nice, I guess. But yeah, and then as if you're a Mets fan, you know that we have yet to win since. So, it happens. I was at the 2006 NLCS for the Mets. That was the one. That you're probably too young for, but that was the one where Carlos Beltran struck out in the bottom of the ninth with the bases loaded. It's the whole thing. Like when you're a kid and you're dreaming about becoming a professional baseball player, you're like, all right, bottom of the ninth, 2 on, 2 out. Like you're imagining that scenario. So he got to live that scenario, and he just stared at strike 3 being called right over the plate. I mean, it was a nasty curveball, but it is what it is. So they almost killed me that night because in that exact moment, my appendix exploded.
Oh my god.
I was like, so there was the pitch, and then I'm like, oh! And everybody's like, all right, we lost, but you don't have to be so dramatic about it. And I'm like, I'm in an extraordinary amount of pain. Hospital now. This ain't right. This ain't right. And so that was my first year teaching here, and so I had to miss a solid 2 weeks of school.
Whoever was on call that night must have hated you.
Oh.
They were in the middle of watching the Mets game. They were with their friends. They got called in.
Exactly. Yeah, but you know what? Honestly, if you're a Mets fan, in that moment, you're probably like, you know what? Forget it. I might as well just go to work.
It'll distract them.
Yeah. Just take your mind off it. I'll just do a nice appendix cleanup.
So you had to wallow in defeat
Yeah.
the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. It was pretty brutal. And then the following year was even worse, because that was the collapse.
What happened to the appendix?
Well, no, not me personally. For the Mets, we were up by 7 games with 17 to play, running away with the division.
Oh my god.
Oh my.
Wait, who ended up winning?
The Phillies.
Oh my god. How's that?
Yeah, so we blew that lead.
Wow.
2 years later, the Phillies lost the Yankees.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right, but I believe the year before that they won the whole thing. So that sucks. And surprisingly, the Mets did not fire their manager at that point. They waited a whole 4 months to do that. Actually, 6 months. So yeah, that was good. I remember because I was doing a personal doubleheader that day, because I had Mets tickets and Giants tickets.
Oh, whoa.
That's awesome.
That's sick.
That's
So, last game of the season,
But that's still fun.
the Mets, we're going to make the playoffs. I know we just blew the lead, but if we win this game, we're in. We don't even get to the seats before we're down 5-0. I walked into the stadium. I was like, all right, so is there any point of staying here? So I stayed for a few innings. Then we left.
But the Giants were good that year, though.
Yeah,
Right?
this is-
Right, but they were coming off of, they had just
That was like the
won their first game.
Yeah.
They lost the first two. They won against Washington on a goal line stand, and now they're taking on Philly. And it was the turning point of the season, I think, because we sacked the Eagles 12 times in that game.
Oh my god.
It was
Like the Cruise, Eli.
yeah, it was incredible.
That must have been so sick compared to now.
Right. So anyway, that was pre-Cruise though. That was yeah, that was still Plaxico Burress territory.
Oh, Plaxico.
Yeah, before he shot himself in the leg because he was carrying a gun in a nightclub and he put the gun in the waistband of his sweatpants.
That's so stupid.
Yeah.
He went to
So,
jail for shooting himself.
yeah. New York, very strict gun control laws.
That's crazy.
You shoot yourself, you go to jail. You shoot somebody else, different story. All right. So anyway, that's the precursor to this question because Sandy Alderson, who's the general manager for the New York Mets, was being interviewed, and he said, and I decided to make a problem out of this, he said if you get your leadoff player on, that it's a 50-50 of whether or not you'll score at least one run in that inning. Every now and then. I almost went down like 3 times today myself. So, yeah. So you're around a 50% chance of scoring a run, at least one run, if you get the leadoff player on. All right. Now that's kind of a big range there. At least one run. That could be 20 runs, or it could be 1 run, or like there's all sorts of different possibilities. So it could get skewed very quickly, but I collected the data, and it turned out in 2015 that the on-base percentage for all the teams. Oh, dang it. Typo. So in 2015, the on-base percentage for all MLB teams was about 323. Right? And so this is how the data kind of worked itself out. So what we want to do is run a simulation to see, like if we were to play the game of baseball using these criteria, how would this play out? All right. So first thing we'd have to account for is whether or not the leadoff hitter gets on. All right. So what I'm going to do, just looking at these values here, 0.323, that's to the thousandth place. Same thing with 0.677. So I'm going to let zero, zero, zero to 999 represent 1,000 possible outcomes. All right. So that's going to be really my sample space. That's the playground, if you will. All right. The first 32.3% of that is going to be the leadoff hitter getting on, and everything else will be the leadoff hitter not getting on. All right. So we just got to think about how many values would represent a leadoff hitter getting on. All right. So I need 323 values. If we include the 0, that would get me from 000 to 322 would be the leadoff hitter getting on. Everything else, so 323 to 999 would be the leadoff hitter not getting on. All right. So that would be the criteria for the first aspect of the simulation. Now, the second part, we're looking at 2-digit numbers. So what I would do here, I mean, we could work with the same array of values, but I like to kind of keep things compartmentalized just to make things a little easier to understand. All right. So let 00 to 99 represent 100 possible outcomes. And so 00 to 56, right? Because we need 57 values. 57 out of 100 would give us 0.57. We need 57 values, but if you include the 0, we would only go out to 56. All right. That would be scores at least one run. Given leadoff hitter on. All right, because there's two ways you could score at least one run: if the leadoff hitter is on, or if the leadoff hitter did not get on. All right, maybe it was the second batter who got on. All right. So under the same circumstances, 57 to 99 would be the event in which you scored nothing, so no score. So no score given the leadoff hitter is on. Now we can work with the same array of values, 00 to 99, for the events in which the leadoff hitter is not on. It's going to be different numbers within that set of 0 to 99. All right, so we'll be looking at 00 to 15. And that would be scoring at least one run given that the leadoff hitter is not on. So let me just get a not in there. And then the rest of the way, 16 to 100 to 99, sorry, would be no score given that the leadoff hitter is not on. So all of this has to be accounted for when we run our simulation. The act of actually carrying out the simulation should not be difficult. That's just random integers. But knowing what the structure is supposed to be, that's really what matters the most. All right. So let me kind of color code things a little bit here. Because this set of outcomes is all the black notation. Then I got the blue. And then we got the red. All right. So we'll just carry out a couple of iterations of the simulation, just because it didn't really give us anything other than designing the simulation itself. So we pretty much did that. All right. So we have the design here. The tree diagram was actually part of the design, because when things get more complicated, we're talking about marbles from a bag. You don't need a tree diagram. But when it comes to something like this, for organizational purposes, it's probably a good idea to have something like a tree diagram to keep things straight. All right. So math, probability option 5. Random integer. We would first start out with the values from 0 to 999. All right. we don't need to store it. We're just going to go one item at a time. So 484, I'd look at this and say, okay, well, what does 484 do for me here? All right, so outcome 484. All right, so that tells me that the leadoff hitter is not on. All right. So the leadoff hitter is not on. So I'm in my red category here. All right. So I'd run another random integer going to 99, 0 to 99. So that gets me a 32. All right. So the leadoff hitter is not on, and we got no score. All right, because that 32 falls in the 16 to 99 category. All right, so do it a couple times, at least until we get maybe a score, or at least one of each type of category. Let's see how it goes. All right, so again, math, probability, option 5, 0 to 999. Get us started here. 873. Leadoff hitter is not on. All right, so 873. Leadoff hitter is not on. And let's see what happens in terms of scoring. 28, still no score. All right, we'll try it again. 795, same deal. Leadoff hitter's not on. A 10, so we got a score. At least one run. So we had 795. Leadoff hitter not on. But there is a score involved. All right, but like I said before, that score could be one run, but it could also be 5 runs. It could be 20 runs. I mean, it's probably not, but it could be more than the one run. All right, so let's do one more. 899, leadoff hitter's not on. And 79, no score. All right, so just because I had the room. Oh. All right, so out of 4 attempts in this simulation, we only got one instance in which there was a score. But if you keep trying, keep going through the process, it'll flesh out a value or a result or a set of results that are closer to the true probability. That's the whole idea behind experimental probabilities, is that you don't know what the actual results are in terms of what the true nature of the relationship is numerically. So it's really glorified trial and error. You just keep carrying out the process, experimenting over and over and over again until you flesh out something that can be trusted as a true approximation of the probability. All right. So that's that. What I wanted to do is take you over to the Monte Hall activity, which is pretty cool, I think. So in Schoology, so if you go to the Unit 3 folder, I'm sorry, Unit 2 folder, getting ahead of myself, Monte Hall. And we have a couple more topics that we have to learn about, but once we do, then we'll go back and debrief on the Plinko and central limit theorem activities. But yeah, those they're not forgotten. We'll be coming back to those. All right, but the Monte Hall one is pretty straightforward. There's a simulator on my website. I have a whole title, probability simulators, but I only have one simulator, but you know, it is what it is. All right, and then a location where you can record your results. All right, so all I'm asking you to do is play the game. All right, you're recording individual results, so this this spreadsheet's going to get pretty bulky, but that's okay. So what you're going to do is make a copy. I made one copy to get started, but all you have to do is click on that little jammy in the upper left-hand corner, that little triangle thing. Do a Command C, copy. Hit that little plus sign, then click on that little triangle jammy. Command V, paste, and it'll dump it all into a new sheet. So, and then rename that sheet. Just throw your name in there. All right. So rename it, whatever your name is. All right. So then once you do that, you just play the game. It asks you, did you switch or stick, and then whether or not you won. So let me just show you what I mean by that. So you have the doors, all right? So click on a door to begin, all right? Any of the 3 doors, all right? And we're only going with 3 doors, so don't modify the number on the bottom, all right? So once you click on one of the doors, an incorrect answer is revealed, all right? The incorrect would be a goat versus a new sports car, all right? So then you have a choice to stay with your initial selection or switch to an alternative, all right? Knowing now that the middle one is the wrong answer, you wouldn't select that one. So it's basically stay with your original choice or switch to the other choice. All right, so let me say that I stay with my original choice. All right, so I got a goat, I lost. All right, so what I would do in my table here is I would say that I stuck. Well, this one is locked, so I would stick. It's still protected. Oh, crying out loud. It helps if I actually click on the thing. So I'd hit stick and then no. And all of this stuff in yellow is going to get taken care of for you. I just want you to play the game. All right. So all the wins and losses and all that stuff, probabilities, that's going to get computed for you, ideally correctly. I think I double checked it, but you never know. All right. So if you switched, so do it again, try again. Let's say I go for the one on the left and I decided to switch. I lost again. All right. So I switched and I did not win. All right. So there you go. So this should be pretty easy, but it all depends on whether or not I made the spreadsheet correctly. So you'll let me know, though.
Says file not found.
Says file not found. All right, that's strike one.